Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. Our first story of the day is by Throwaway for Finavial. I'm not allowed to take the full break I'm entitled to? Alright, enjoy getting in trouble. I work at a large company that we like to call Wally World. Wally World has a break policy where you're allowed to take an hour-long, unpaid meal break, but it has to at least be 30 minutes. Now, a lot of the older people don't mind taking just 30 minutes, but it's common rule that minors should follow the hour-long meal schedule. I was told that anytime I was getting a meal break, I could take an hour. I typically only do 45 minutes, but still long enough for me. The thing is that minors can't work longer than 30 hours a week, be it during a normal school week. I average 28 hours a week. That's 2 8-hour shifts on the weekend and 3 6-hour shifts during the weekdays typically. I'm nearing 6 months and have always taken a 45-minute long meal break. Now I'm suddenly being told that if I work 6 hours, then I should only be taking a 30-minute meal break. My department was very insistent on that for anyone working 6 hours. I was confused seeing as all the new hires could take hour-long meals during their 6-hour shifts, but I suddenly couldn't? At the time I didn't realize this, but if I only take a 30-minute lunch with those shifts, then I would be going over the time I was allowed to work. 7, 7, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5 would be 30.5. I started to question it all, and it took a few weeks of going over 30 hours to finally ball up and talk to my store's personnel about it. At first, she was confused, but after I explained it all and went into the website to show the exact times I had been clocking in and out, she just told me to follow my schedule, and I thought that was that. Of course, my department managers weren't too happy, but they suddenly stopped telling me to take shorter breaks and started asking if I would be willing to take shorter breaks. I didn't realize that they actually got in trouble until an older coworker overheard the managers talking about scheduling all the breaks when I'm not supposed to take 30 minutes anymore. If given the opportunity at your work, would you rather have a 30-minute lunch break or take the full hour knowing you would spend another 30 minutes later at work than you would if you only took a 30-minute lunch break? Let me know which of those two you'd prefer in the comments down below. Our next story is by Kavian. When I get a minute, eh? Sure. Many moons ago, when I was in my early 20s, I was working as a server in the huge Earth globe at the happiest place on Earth. I had only been there for maybe 3 months, but my ridiculous knowledge of the tons of movie memorabilia scattered throughout the restaurant made me a pretty fun server to have. I am an overactor and, as a server, was quite fun and entertaining. As such, management would give me tables that were upset because I could almost always reverse that attitude and produce happy customers. Well, there was a 12 top that someone got overlooked and waited over 2 hours for a table. Wait times here would vary from 45 minutes to 1.5 hours on average during dinner service. You would get a pager and could go visit the other stores and shops at the downtown destination while you waited. Well, the family, I am told, was pissed. After everyone is seated, I get started lightening the mood and welcoming them and launch into tour guide/order taker mode, suggesting some bomb apps and drinks as I go around the table. Workflow here demanded an intro within 45 seconds of being sat and drinks on the table within 3 minutes. Apps on the table within 10. We moved fast. My table turnover rate was an average of 45 minutes. This is important. I drop off the drinks and begin to take entree orders. As I finish, customer Bill shakes his now empty glass of water, now only ice, that I set down literally 1 minute earlier, at me and says, "Hey Kavian, when you have a minute." "Sure Bill, I'll get right on that." We had a touchscreen point of sale system that was pretty consistent, so you could actually get ahead of the system before the screen could refresh. So if you knew where everything was on the screen, you could enter orders and be done before the system caught up. I finish entering the 12 tops order, process a payment for another table, print the final check for a third, and make desserts for my last one. I come out with a full tray, drop off the card slip, check, and desserts. I let the 12 top know their apps will be out in just a few minutes and point out a few cool movie things they could see hanging from the ceiling. Customer Bill again rattles the ice in his empty glass at me and says, "Hey, Cavian," much to the annoyance of the rest of his group. I look him dead in the eye and stated, "I know, I just haven't had a minute," and walked off. I brought him a refill with the apps. This time I brought 2 glasses. I drink a lot of water with meals too, so I understood the thirst. The rest of the party was still laughing about my minute joke when I did. They had a great time. Bill lightened up and was laughing along with everyone else, and they left me a good tip. It's definitely all in the performance here because I could see a million scenarios where a waiter goes, "I know, I just haven't had a minute," and it would just end up completely bombing and make the waiter look bad, like they don't care about the person's water. Sometimes it might be a little much to have a waiter that wants to try and flip your mood if you're just looking for something low-key. But then again, if you're at the happiest place on earth, you should expect a little bit of the theatrics. This next story is by Red Tex. You want to rant and rave and not let me tell you how to fix your tech issue? Fine. 5 minutes ago, a client calls in to tell in excruciating detail of a password issue he's having that will not allow him to log in for work. I attempted to tell him how this is an easy fix, but was cut off time and time again with his rants about how this system sucks and, as he's a programmer, he knows that there's an issue with his Active Directory account. After about 10 minutes of this, I give up as he will not let me get a word in edgewise. I finally just followed his demands to make him a ticket and forgot the easy fix for his issue and simply proceeded with his instructions. I wonder what he'll say when the notoriously slow remote team we use for password issues finally gets back to him in a week or so for something that he could have fixed in 5 minutes had he stopped being an overbearing jerk. You gotta love armchair experts who just know everything from some prior experience. I know for a fact it's this issue, so therefore, send me through this process to solve this problem. It's like, sir, just please let me try and solve the problem for you. This next story is by Lyrens. You want to use the bathroom closed for cleaning? Go for it. When I was younger, 18, 19, I worked at a fairly popular beach in my state as a supervisor. My job included selling and checking beach passes at entrances, parking cars, and closing the bathrooms at the end of the day for cleaning. We closed the bathrooms at 7 p.m. every night, and there were 3 announcements made on the intercoms in 15-minute intervals before they were closed. Now, usually we would get our fair share of stragglers who would come right as the bathrooms closed. I would tell them, the bathrooms are closed, blah blah blah, and they would leave. Some friendly, others not, all in a day's work. Well, one day I come up to the bathrooms to lock the door at 7 o'clock sharp. When I entered the bathroom attendants immediately filled me in on what was going on. To be honest, I really wasn't listening because the situation was pretty obvious. There was poop everywhere. The mirrors, the walls, sinks, toilets, toilet paper, floors, everything was covered in diarrhea. A full-blown poopageddon, if you will. From what I understand, a beachgoer on some sort of drug destroyed the bathroom at approximately 6:55 p.m. and ran out before anyone could say anything. Now look, I'm usually a pretty laid-back girl, so I said something along the lines of, "Well, whatever, we have a power washer connected to some pretty industrial cleaner and floor drains. Let's get this done so we can go home." People suck sometimes. The offender was clearly battling an addiction. Crap happens. Literally. I lock the door and put some gloves on. I start hearing banging on the door, so I walk over and open it to a line of angry Karens. The head Karen of the group starts asking if they can use the restrooms. I say, "I'm sorry, unfortunately the bathrooms are closed and are currently being cleaned. They close at 7 and I can't make any exceptions." The head Karen says, "Well, we need to go. Open the door." I say, "There were 3 announcements stating that the bathrooms were closing. I'm sorry, but I cannot do that." Here's where things got serious. She and a few other Karens start pushing on the door to open it and begin calling me some of the most disrespectful names in the book. I'm holding the door and threatening to call security, especially because the poor bathroom attendants, a bunch of 16-year-old girls, are scared and unsure of what to do. Cue malicious compliance. I tell the Karens to give me a second to let the attendants out, and they are welcome to use our closed facilities. The girls leave, I open the door, and they are met with the poopiest crime scene of all time. They immediately evacuate the poop-nuked bathroom in silence as I stood there acting like I was confused. Of course, I got some threats that I was gonna be fired, but the next day there were no complaints filed. Guess it's hard to report someone for being accommodating. You don't want to go in there? Yes, I do. Trust me, you don't want to go in there. Yes, I do. Well, okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. This next story is by GoldOr777. Old people don't want the lifeguard to let people in without a pool pass. Get mad when they're not let in without a pool pass. Not my story, but my dad's, whom I got permission from to post this. So when my dad worked as a lifeguard in a condominium complex, there was a rule here that nobody was allowed to enter the pool area without a pool pass that proved they lived there. Now my dad would sometimes let people in without a pass, not people he didn't know of course, but people he knew did have pool passes and he knew for certain lived in the complex. There were a few old people who were nearly always at the pool when my dad was on duty. They would always watch him and make sure that he wasn't letting people in without passes. They would always come up to him afterwards and say, "Why did you let them in without a pass? I should come in without my pass then." After a while, my dad got pretty tired of these people nagging on him like this, so he decided to follow the rules word for word and not let a single person in without a pass. One day, one of the old people came in without their pass. They tried to just walk past my dad when he stopped them. "Sorry, it's against the rules for me to let you in without a pool pass." Of course, this person would not just accept the irony and leave. Instead, they had to yell, scream, and make a scene. Even after trying the classics like, "I've lived here for 20 years. Do you know who I am?" And the obvious, "I want to speak to your manager." Even after all that, my dad would not budge. They eventually calmed down and just left. This did not stop the people from nagging on him, but they did get a healthy dose of malicious compliance. I mean, rules are rules. You need your pool pass. You can't be a hypocrite and complain when you don't have your pool pass if you're the one complaining about other people getting in without one. That's just like the basic unwritten hypocrite rule. And our final story of the day is by True Crime Nancy Drew. Insist on no insurance to take advantage of a young female driver? No, sir. This happened a few years ago. I drove a junky old Ford Escape, but I was proud of her. Anyways, I have to make a tough to see left turn, and a little Honda hits my rear right tire dead on, causing no damage to his car except a cracked license plate cover. My vehicle sustained enough damage that I had to get it towed. This car wasn't anything beautiful either. The guy gets out and we exchange information. However, he insists on not getting insurance companies involved. Where I live, this means we cover our own minor expenses and we move on. This guy suddenly finds me on Facebook and sends me 2 different quotes for $1,100 and $1,300. I tell him that seems high, so he says if I can find a real quote for less, he'll agree to my mechanic's price. Cue malicious compliance. I gather the guy's full information, name, phone number, vehicle make and model, etc. Most importantly, his own photos of the damage, and say my mechanic will contact him shortly. My mechanic is my father. He's been a mechanic for 30 years at this point. He informs the man that he will have to contact his insurance company if he wants anything done by us. Never heard from that man again. Honestly, I'm surprised that worked out so well, because there was no real quote from this mechanic. So what's stopping the guy from saying, well, find another mechanic that will give a quote without needing my insurance? Or maybe OP's dad is so good at convincing him that no real mechanic will do any kind of work without having the insurance involved. Either way, it was effective and he got out of the entire situation as a result. I call that a win. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.